Hi everyone, welcome back to the ROC Podcast. My name is Carley Widner, and today I am joined by our Louisiana State Director, Dwight Hudson. How are you doing today, Dwight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Carley.
Yeah, of course. How was your flight in?
It was good. Yeah, we were worried about TSA lines and that kind of thing, but
I know.
We got right through. 5 minutes at TSA pre-check, so no problems.
Yeah, today we learned that we both have TSA pre-check in common, which is pretty exciting. I think we're going to have to make that an interview question for
Definitely
Right on Crime from
a necessity right now, yeah.
For sure. Well, and not only do we have TSA in common, but we also have a shared passion for reentry. I know it's a big thing for Right on Crime, but also for you in Louisiana. And it's one thing for me to read about it and to research it. It's another thing to experience it, which you've done a lot of recently. So, over the past year, you've toured places like Lifehouse University, the reentry program at Angola, and Judge Christophe's reentry court in East Baton Rouge Parish. So can you tell us a little bit about, your experiences and what stood out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, I'll tell you, touring Angola was really an eye-opening experience for me. Seeing the reentry programming that is available there, the credentialing that folks can get, the addiction recovery services that are available there. There's really a lot of resources available for people to take advantage of. A lot of resources that will prepare people for moving into a career, the soft skills that they'll need, and then the life skills that they'll need as well. So a lot to take advantage of there. And then you couple that with what's available on the back end when you're out. And that's where folks like Lifehouse or Parole Project will come in. Those services are really, really robust. They're sort of wraparound, if you will, in that they are providing housing, which can be a struggle for folks that are reentering. They are providing employment. They're keeping up with the addiction recovery effort and that kind of thing. And they're also providing accountability, which when it comes to public safety, we know that has to be a part of the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that you said, it's a really holistic view, especially in the prison still, and that reentry doesn't just start whenever they leave. It has to start beforehand. In your experience, have you found that, former offenders, while they're still in prison, are eager to be in those kinds of programs?
Absolutely. So I'll tell you two things. One, in the reentry programming, particularly at Angola, the lifers are the ones who are running it, right? Okay. So it's not DOC staff. It's actually lifers at Angola who have gotten these certifications. They've learned how to become the teacher and are now giving the programming to the individuals that are in the program. And so they are passionate, right? Now they have purpose. Right. Now they have something that they're able to give back. And so they've gone from being defined by their worst day to now being defined by helping somebody else get a second chance. And then you move to the program participant. And look, those guys know this is their chance, right? A lot of the folks that are involved in these programs have had significant crimes. And so this is their chance to set things right and get solid feet back on the ground and attain that freedom.
That's great. And there must be that, that credibility that lifers have, for the people that are going to get out and, reenter society. They then probably trust the people that are, helping them with the program more because of that.
So the folks at DOC will tell you, the Department of Public Safety and Corrections will tell you, the program participants don't have the same amount of trust. They don't have the same amount of connection with somebody that is in correction staff as they would with a lifer. They've not had the same life experiences. They've not seen the same things, but those lifers have. They've been through a lot of those things. They've seen the family struggles that come along with incarceration. They've seen the struggles on the back end with gaining employment and that kind of thing. Yeah. And so it really gives them buy-in to the program.
Have you gotten to interact with any of these participants? And then, second part of that question, what's been something that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I'll tell you a story about a fella named Hayward that I met. So Hayward is a lifer at Angola. He is one of the leaders of the automotive training program. And the really neat thing is that, if you Google him now, right, you would think maybe some crime would show up because he's a lifer, right? He committed a significant crime. But that's not what shows up when you Google his name. What shows up is the multitude of individuals that he has helped. You see where he's served as a missionary to other prisons to help them get their programming off the ground. And so whereas he would have otherwise been defined by his worst day of his life in what he did, no, he's now being defined by giving back and helping other people attain freedom, but also live a productive life and not recommit, not reoffend.
Yeah. And for those people that, do have an opportunity to leave and reenter, that same importance of not being defined by your past mistakes, still applies as they reenter, into their communities and begin to be a productive member of society. So how are the other two organizations that you've toured helping with that side of it, of helping them, start over and not be defined by their past mistakes?
Yeah, absolutely. So particularly at Lifehouse, I found it really interesting. One of the biggest struggles is employment. Lifehouse addresses that by they are the employer, right? So they actually act as a staffing agency. And so they work with some of the municipal governments, some of the other employers, industrial employers in the area, where as soon as you come out, they get you plugged into their system. They go through a little transition period, but you know that you're going to have a job because Lifehouse has those jobs ready there waiting for you. They're also providing that the housing, which of course, for a lot of folks, it's a struggle to find. And then they're also providing that group environment where they're able to get programming. They're able to make sure that they're not reoffending and that kind of thing. So it's the accountability piece as well.
I mean, objectively, all this sounds amazing. So what are people getting wrong or, misconceiving about some of these programs?
Yeah, well, I think, I don't know that they're getting wrong, but I think the biggest struggle to advancing these types of programming is capacity.
Right.
And the biggest struggle with capacity in Louisiana is the unique way that we house inmates. So over half of our inmates, of our state prison inmates, are actually serving their time in local jails just because of shortages of space at the state facilities. And so because of that, it makes it really difficult to provide some of those services. I'll give credit to our local sheriffs as well. It's not for lack of trying. Often it's a lack of funding and just the rural nature of some of these facilities. But it becomes very difficult to provide those services. Oftentimes it even becomes difficult to provide something like an ID, something simple like an ID when you're reentering. And so all of those can become burdens to someone who's reentering and cause issues.
Yeah. So we're talking a lot about reentry programming. People hear that in conversation, but there's also reentry courts. So how do you see those two working together rather than as separate ideas?
Yeah, so in Louisiana, I really think reentry courts coupled with reentry programming is the low-hanging fruit.
Okay.
So 19% of our judicial districts in Louisiana currently have reentry courts. When we look at our southern peers, we have work to do, right? And so the unique thing about reentry courts is that they ensure that the programming is provided on the front end for folks. So you go through a 2-year program at Angola to get industry credentials and to get ready for job training. You get addiction recovery if you need it. You can get soft skills training. All that happens the 2 years while you're incarcerated. And then on the back end, you still have the accountability of the court. So you're going in once a week to the judge, getting regular drug tests. The judge is checking in on you. They're talking with your parole officer and making sure that everything is going right in that regard. And so it really is the unique coupling of programming with accountability that makes those successful. We're seeing a lot of success with it in East Baton Rouge Parish and Jefferson Parish and other places. And so we would love to see that expand across the state.
That's great. Yeah. So with reentry courts, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're just kind of testing to see, is this person ready to reenter society? That's kind of the back end side of that. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're it's not a given that you're going to, this is not one of those programs where you can just check the box, right? There is real accountability from a judge We have toured Judge Crafasi's court in East Baton Rouge Parish, and gotten to see whenever one of the offenders wasn't keeping up his end of the bargain, he got accountability. He failed out of the program. And so, look, that's what we need, is to protect public safety. We're not looking for more programs to just check the box and get time off your sentence. This is real accountability. Somebody actually taking the time to look at the facts of the case and see what's going on with the individual and make sure they're ready to reenter. Yeah,
that's great. And then, in your experience talking to different people that have re-entered society, what are you finding that, these programs help to ensure that leaving prison doesn't just avoid crime, they build a stable, productive life? What are those key, I guess, components that you've mentioned, whether it's job access, rehab if they are, have like different drug addictions, kind of what are you seeing are the main things?
You touched on them. So it's essentially having a job is a key one, being able to secure housing, and then dealing with addiction for a lot of folks is a major one. And so if you're able to address those types of issues, the chances of you having a successful reentry are drastically go up.
Yeah. And you got to host a forum a few months ago, and where you kind of brought in employers to showcase some of these things and to say, this is why it's important to hire these former offenders. Despite their past, they're actually, because of the preparation that, the courts have done, the programming's done, this is why you should hire them. What surprised you about employers' willingness to engage with these people?
Yeah, I think... the stigma is there, right? And so for a lot of people, they just needed the information to know how to overcome that stigma, right? I don't think a lot of the employers that attended realized the training that takes place, and then how job ready some of these individuals are. It was interesting hearing from folks like at Jerry Lane Enterprises, which is a major car dealership in Louisiana. They love hiring people that have come from the automotive program because they've got all of their ASC certifications. They're ready to go, and so they will tell you some of their best employees have come from the reentry program. And so I think that was eye-opening to some of the employers that were there that weren't familiar with reentry hiring. It's just how great of employees these folks can be. And then they also didn't know about the nonprofits on the back end who can help backstop, right? So I like to call it reentry on purpose, right? So it's one thing for an employer just to give someone a second chance. That's a good thing. Definitely want to encourage that. But if you're giving someone a second chance that has been through the programming and that has the support from a great partner like Parole Project or Lifehouse, where that they've got protection against relapse if there's addiction issues. They've got stable housing, so that's not going to be an issue. They've got transportation, so that's not going to be an issue. It makes that employee so much more valuable to the employer.
Yeah, and in some cases, I'm sure those employees may even be more, valuable in a sense than someone that hadn't gone through these programs and have these resources, because they also have something to prove to themselves and to their communities.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're trying to reestablish, that those ties they have to the community, those ties they have to family. And so for many of these folks, this is their time to prove. Yeah.
And at this event, you had perspectives from the Louisiana Department of Public Safety and Corrections. So what did their perspective add to the event as a whole, but also to how you view reentry?
Yeah, so Public Safety and Corrections has been an incredible partner. They get it when it comes to reentry. They understand that they need the programming and that they need to continue investing in it. And so I think that is what they helped to drive home at that forum was, look, these programs aren't going to go away. If anything, we're going to invest more into them. And so that's encouraging. That's encouraging for employers to hear that you can have a steady pipeline of workforce because these programs are here to stay.
Yeah. And what lessons do you think other states should be taking from Louisiana right now?
Yeah, I think continuing to invest in reentry. That is where you are seeing pay off on the back end with lower recidivism rates, is by continuing to invest in the reentry process. So you've got to prepare people for work. You've got to prepare people for dealing with family issues and housing. And so wherever you can invest in reentry, I think it's vital.
That's great. And then if you could take from everything that you saw, your conversations, your tours, your employer forum, and implement one change tomorrow, what would you do and why?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the number one change that I would do is ensure that more state inmates are reentering from regional reentry facilities, so that you can ensure that they are having the programming that they need. So even absent of specific reentry court programming and that kind of thing, having folks go through their last several months and make sure that they have all the information that they need to reenter, all the documentation they need as far as IDs and essential documents, I think is key. And so with our unique structure of having so many inmates housed in state prisons, I think that would be the number one thing.
Well, I know y'all are working really hard to make sure people have those resources, and that all the organizations that work on this in Louisiana are working together to make sure that, you guys build a safer state and more productive state. So I'm excited to see what you guys do in session, and where can people keep up with you and your work?
Yeah, so rightoncrime.com is the website. And then, of course, I'm on X as well, at Dwight Hudson.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming in, Dwight. We've enjoyed having you. And if you want to learn more about what Dwight is doing or about Right on Crime, you can go to rightoncrime.com.